Nima, but Mr. Nima is requesting that we call the show off because time is fast spent. This is the Colonel E. Remigre show, and for those of you joining us, we were trying to see if we can come and discuss general public policy issues because Mr. Nima served in that corridor, and he's one of a few modern experts we have. And these are the guys who will take over from the old boons and the old gurus like Dr. Amos Sawyer, people like Togbana Tipote and H. Boy Mafambule. Of course, those become sage over time, but you need a generation that will foster the legacy of that group of people. And of course, he's the subject of my microphone and camera tonight. Mr. Nima, good evening, sir.
Colonel Edmond Remigre, it's a pleasure to actually have an opportunity, an exclusive opportunity to chat with you on issues of national concern. But of particular interest is the fact that I can have this kind of opportunity, very decent opportunity to talk to the Colonel Edmond Remigre on the show. The show tells a lot. It speaks volume about the kind of society we anticipate in the not too distant future. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, of course, Mr. Numa, I just want to let you know, admonish you that anything you say here, of course, is not to the caprices of the station, but rather they are your intellectual output, and so they are your personal opinions. And for the benefit of those who are watching us in faraway land, including social media and other forms of platform that we appear on simultaneously, we'd like to welcome you. And of course, Mr. Numa is nobody strange in our generation. He's one of those people who have been around and have walked the walk and talked the talk. Mr. Numa, of course, I will have to share this broadcast so others can join us. In case people want to participate, we will, this will be an hour-long broadcast. So because time is fast spent, we were anticipating coming on earlier, but Mr. Tokpa, Iva Tokpa, of course, had something else that came up, and he wanted us to just about this time around to join. He could join us, but he's a very busy guy. Everybody is, including Mr. Nima, but he had made that earlier commitment, and not everybody like to renege on commitments. So as we go by, Mr. Nima, I would like to share this video around. I will ask that you put your thoughts together and begin to ponder on some of the intriguing public policy issues we'll talk about today. Firstly, let us look at the well-being of our civil service agency. How did you leave that agency? Not your exit per se, but in what shape you left the agency?
Thank you, Colonel Gray. Quite an interesting and challenging question. I left the agency back in 2013, and in my wisdom and in my understanding, and given the fact that we have done so much work at the agency, the Civil Service Agency, I felt very strongly that we led the agency in a direction that was focused, meaningful, purposeful, and reform-oriented. And so I would say, for the benefit of our listening public, that the Civil Service Agency became one of the towers of our public institution in a relatively short time on the watchful eyes of Dr. C. William Allen. Dr. Allen, as part of the governance and public institution pillar of the PRS and subsequently the Agenda for Transformation, took serious interest in the milestones and deliverables of the Civil Service Agency, and at the same time adopted a quite of a tripartite approach in dealing with issues of public institution and governance. And to the extent where Dr. Allen, Dr. Sawyer, and Professor Haramonga collaborated from the very onset of the poverty reduction strategy onward to the 2012 to 2017 Agenda for Transformation. There were key deliverables that were met. There was transformatory decisions that were made that I feel strongly, in my personal view, stands out today amongst the many things that were done at the level of the Civil Service Agency.
Mr. Newman, thank you so much. But one can say the Civil Service Agency that you guys nurture, built from ground up. When I say from ground up, this was the post-war Civil Service Agency that you guys came in and started erecting from scratch, so to speak. A number of professionals came in, the Talk 10, the SES program, and then you can just name quite a few of the group of professionals that were drawn, upon from the United States, from other parts of the diaspora, the United Kingdom, and to some extent we even have the British form of USAID. Everybody coming in to contribute their quota. It was built from nothing to a professional civil service corridor. Could you say that's the case today? Are we still intact in terms of our civil service agency? Is it still intact? Or now that we have a change of regime, things have gone crashing down again to the ground once more?
I'm not sure if things have turned out so bad, because one thing that I like to emphasize is that one of our colleagues who worked with us as a partner working along with CISREP is now the Director General of the Civil Service Agency, in person of James Thompson. James Thompson is quite knowledgeable. He's very versed with the programs and activities of the Civil Service Agency. He worked along with CISREP, which was a partner-supported body that helped develop the Civil Service Reform Strategy that is a corollary of the Poverty Reduction Strategy. So many of the milestones that we met at the time are milestones that I believe remains fresh on the minds of Mr. Thompson and his co-workers at the Civil Service Agency. There are a lot of people at the Civil Service Agency right now who are very knowledgeable about the many things that we did. For example, mandate and functional review of the ministries, agencies, and commissions of government. You may want to ask, what is the mandate and functional review of a ministry?
Exactly.
So the mandate and functional review of ministries were a position that the government took at the time in terms of reforming our government institutions. As creating some of our government institutions became a little bit too moribund, they were all in themselves, they didn't articulate the kind of programs that were needed for this contemporary Liberia that we all are yearning for. some ministries became a little bit more dominant. The government exists because government has to render services to its people. And government can only render services to its people through its institutions. And so ministries and agencies of government should be viable enough to the point where they are able to provide services to their people. So, for example, if you went to the Ministry of Health and you wanted a birth certificate, it took almost 3 to 4 months because of the bloated system, because of the kind of bureaucracy, unwarranted bureaucracy that were established. You needed to do X, Y, and Z, when in fact there were sophisticated ways that you could do those very things and get results in one day. I'm just giving you an example. The same thing with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the passport section. If you needed a passport in Liberia, it took you almost 2 to 3 months. But as we went through the mandate and functional review of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we saw the lapses, we saw the challenges, we saw the infrastructure deficit, the human capital deficit, and the institutional deficit, as well as the resources in terms of finances that were needed to run that section of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And that would apply to the ministry in totality, so to speak. So I'm just saying to you that the mandate and functional review of ministries were used to kind of identify the quality of services that one ministry could do versus the other, and whether or not there were overlapping functions in this ministry, and to what place would a particular service or services be best suited. That is exactly what the mandate and functional review did. By that, I mean we were streamlining ministry to see the uniqueness and the relevance of their program toward the services that our people so dearly need. So mandate and functional review was crucial. I know the current team at the Civil Service Agency headed by James Thompson will recall that we also had the President Young Professionals. They were guided under the Civil Service Agency. Before you became a President Young Professional, you had to meet a certain quality. And those qualities were laid out as the standard upon which you were recruited to be a part of the President Young Professional. So it was clearly merit-based. And then we can talk about the Senior Executive Service. Of course, you are aware you participated in the Senior Executive Service. Those were capacity initiated or taken so that our local colleagues who did not have the opportunity to come abroad, to have the experiences out here but live back home and have their own expertise, could blend those expertise with the professional expertise that were coming from abroad to improve the system on the overall. So basically, we have the top 10. The top 10 was the program that brought home experts with exceptional skills. For example, Dr. Darius, president of the University of Liberia. He was a dean at Riga University. He took on the opportunity to go back to Liberia to elevate not just the image of the university, but to set standards that made the university to gain its once relevant image over the years. So you will imagine that the Civil Service Agency took on a number of challenges, but you also agree with me that those challenges yielded fruits, because you could tell from the level of programs that were instituted and completed that led to our university having some of the best minds, expatriate nationals who went home and helped in different disciplines where it became challenging for them to find one on the ground. I like to say this in clear and certain terms, that our country is blessed. Even those of our colleagues that did not travel have certain expertise that those of us who came abroad and went back home needed as a foundation for the expertise that we took back home. And so that blending made it quite a successful program for all of us. And so the nation was on the rise. The civil service was viable. And I believe, since I've been gone for a little bit, it remains viable. I would hope so. Because the one who is there knows exactly what the programs were and what we have anticipated seeing by this time.
You know, one can argue otherwise, that the trajectory, in other words, the onward movement of a particular department of government, exists at the wills and caprices of the power that be. For Madam Sirleaf, one could say probably she wanted to see a professional civil service. That may not be the political interest of our current regime. For this regime, probably the utmost interest would be putting our partisans to work, especially as a token of fulfilling their promises towards them. So professionalism, one can argue, is secondary as regards to meeting the professional mandate of the civil service agency. To what extent did you leave construct in place where people will have to go take a test and further determine their eligibility for position? Do you think those kinds of protocols are still being followed today, given the kind of regime we have right now?
Well, Colonel Gray, you're quite correct. The trajectory to some extent, I will argue that it must have stalled. It must have stalled since we moved into the new era. I don't see of late that people are being recruited on a merit basis. I mean, and you can argue for or against, but there are certain standards or basic things that are anticipated. When done, it points to the fact that there is something that is being merited in the system. So I will argue that, yes, the point you're making is genuine. The point you're making is critical. But again, politics has taken over almost every sector of our society. And one place that should not be politicized is the civil service. Because it is the lifeblood of governance. The human capital is so essential to the viability of a government, to the extent where money becomes useless if you don't have the right person for the right job to do the right thing. You can give someone $20,000 for a small piece of job. That person will demand more if the person does not have the capacity, the capability, the knowledge, and the wherewithal to achieve. They will keep asking you for more money, and at the end of the day, they will achieve nothing. In that same instance, you can also find someone who has the professional expertise, who may be given $20,000 and will be able to achieve far more than an uneducated, inexperienced, and immature person. So the human capital is very significant. That is why when you are finding somebody for a job, you spell out the roles and responsibility of that job. Every job comes with expectation. And expectation yield results. So if there are not results coming from those who are being recruited on the basis of partisanship, then I would think that the system is being undermined.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, so, Mr. Numa, one of my downside of observing the one of my downside while observing the civil service agency is its inability to collaborate with the private sector. I believe the American economy, the society is so professionalized to the extent where a bulk of the services that we tend to undertake in government can be outsourced to the private sector, and then thus bringing that collaboration between governmental agencies like the civil services and that of private sector human resource management. What do I mean? If government has a certain function area that needs to be done, say vital services like birth certificate, anything that has to do with vital statistics or record, that can be managed in the private sector as well. Because here, when you go, all those government centers where they are kind of like privately run, but they collaborate, they are intergovernmental. I did not see much of that. The focus was everything should be done within government because it's government's agency. And I did not see that collaboration in the private sector, thus moving the functionary from government to private, which will give it more weight, because if you're working for a private agency, people tend to be more serious than working for government, where they leave offices 12 midday, they come in late, and nobody to really put them in a place, as opposed to if you were working for a private venture. So I did not see that much collaboration. The question is, did I miss anything? Was there anything in place to enable the private sector take government work and do it effectively?
Under the agenda for transformation, I think it is, if I may recall, Pillar 2.
Yeah.
Pillar 2 talks about economic transformation.
So is this part of the poverty reduction strategy, or the transformation, the one that came after?
Well, there were deliverables that were not achieved at the level of the poverty reduction strategy that were carried over
to transformation.
The agenda for transformation.
Yes, I remember that.
And because of resource constraint, I would say in terms of money, in terms of timeline, in terms of the human capital that you needed to execute certain portion of the poverty reduction strategy, and giving the economic downturn that we were experiencing as a result of the drop in the price of a very serious commodity in Liberia, depending on to attract foreign exchange or in the economy. There were things that were carried over from the agenda from from the poverty reduction strategy to the agenda for transformation. And I believe, if I can recall, under Pillar 2, which is the economic transformation pillar, there is a significant portion that deals strictly with private sector development. That is taking the operational responsibility of most of these ministries to the private sector. And like you correctly said, The private sector works in the context of quota, dividends, profit making. And so the likely possibility that someone in the government setting will take the job more seriously given the lackadaisical nature of our civil service will be much more tougher
unlikely.
If they left and went to the private sector. The private sector has a demand. People are getting paid on time, they are paid, their remunerations are reasonable and measurable and appreciable. And so they have to concentrate on the job because they are stockholders, they are managers who are answerable to board of directors and so on and so forth. So that demand comes back to the supervisors and line managers and then onward to foremen and everybody else to make sure that they can achieve the goals of their particular private institutions. And so in order for government to function, you don't need a big government. You need smaller government for better services. Take the services from the public institution, say for example procurement. Why are we taking back procurement from the hands of the private sector back to government institution? These are Liberians, they can work in the private sector. As a matter of fact, when you do that, you're putting more Liberian in a professional spirit. You're developing more professional minds so that they look at things from a very different perspective. If the society looks in a profit-making context, it produces more than if it starts to look as if government is there to provide everything and almost everything comes from government. And that is the tendency that bill tried to address at the time. It was a crucial component of the agenda for transformation. So in economic transformation, we are saying, take these basic services that are in government today that are being played around, that are being, less attended to the private sector and see how well let the private sector compete for those services. And when they get those services, they win those services, you hold them to their feet to the fire so that they become accountable for the services that they are supposed to give back to the government. In that way, you are improving the private sector, and the private sector is giving directly back to the public sector. So, under the economic transformation pillar of the poverty reduction strategy, that was one significant part that I recall was taking place. If you needed to buy a car, you didn't have to sit in a ministry. People needed to bid for the vehicle. They needed to win the bid through the PPCC and then get certified for them to bring those services to the government. It was a little tough from the onset, but it became useful for the society. We started to see value for money.
So, of course, the PPCC is Private Procurement Concession Commission.
Correct. At the time, it was headed by a distinguished Liberian. Double Jala. But the other thing I wanted to mention also, in economic transformation, you want to take a keen look at macroeconomic policies. How the government sets fiscal policy, which comes from the Ministry of Finance. The way you set the policy that is measurable to the monetary policy will give leverage to how the economy improves. It is the fiscal policy that drives the monetary policy. So things like inflation can be controlled, but it has to be controlled from a fiscal standpoint. You understand what I'm saying? If you have an economy that is experiencing inflation almost all of the time, you're not going to gain value for money because your local currency will continue to depreciate because of the inflation.
So for the common man watching this show, I know the scratching there. So what is this inflation? I always hear people talking about this inflation. What is it? What is this inflation thing for the common man?
So if you have your $5 and all of a sudden this $5 in the past 10 months bought something like a pair of slippers for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the 10 month expires, you take the same $5 and go back to the Lebanese man's store to buy with the $5 that you used before, and you can no longer buy that slipper for $5. Something has happened. Something has gone wrong.
Okay.
The money value has dropped, and therefore the demand for that product that you want now you can't get. And so it becomes difficult for you to buy that item. You will need additional money. Maybe a 50 cent has been added to that slippers for you to buy. Where do you get the 50 cents from? You have to struggle to get that money.
So the inflationary value of the $5 has been 50 cents has been added to it. So it's now $5.50.
Yeah, 50.
So when it goes up, it inflates.
Yeah.
It's like the football. You put air inside, you inflate the ball. When the economy contracts, it deflates.
Yes. So and that's when it contracts, that's when the value of your money appreciates. It goes up.
Okay.
I mean, if you were paying $5 for a slipper, all of a sudden you start to pay $3.50. There is a contraction in the economy.
That is a good sign.
Yeah. Value for money is being felt. If we were to speak in those languages,
layman terms, yeah.
Layman terms, so to speak.
But one of the construct that were put in place. Matter of fact, as you know, evil as others may want to consider the administration of Amar Kone and other professionals like William Allen, there was this thing called HRMIS, Human Resource Management Information System, and IFMIS, Information Financial Management System, and so on. Those ministries were talking to each other. So if Oblanima went to look for a job to say the Ministry of Public Works, the system will bring Oblanima up as an employee, active employee of civil service. One wonders to one extent, and then so payroll padding and all those stuff were being curtailed gradually. One wonders to what extent have those kinds of constructs been maintained or even retained or improved to the next level under this regime.
What I do know is unless you start to look, you start to think outside of government structure. What I do know is that particular exercise of streamlining government payroll, identify ghost names, and double dippers on the payroll.
Right.
Let the civil service through the government at the time to establish the biometrics RD card system.
Oh.
So once you are identified by the biometrics, the biometrics exercise were identified by your fingerprint, so your bow in general.
Yeah.
Those are the ID cards that you will use to go to our banks, like we do in the United States, because of the level of infrastructure in this country. Edmond Remy Gray can be identified as Edmond Remy Gray regardless of where he goes.
Yes.
Unless if Edmond Remy Gray chooses to be a fraudulent character, the system, the infrastructure will determine the extent to which he wants to be fraudulent. The system will identify the fraud because you have a social security number. You also have your BAU that is connected to a number of things that can identify you through
unique identifier,
so to speak.
Yes.
So those were some of the things that we're doing at the Biometric Center under the Civil Service, making sure. So at this point in time, I want to believe strongly that anyone who has a civil service identification number should have a bank account, and that person should be a civil servant. Anyone who receives civil servant pay who does not have a biometric ID card or an identification number.
Unique identification number, that person is not a civil servant. I hear a lot about people who are being sent to ministries by party officials to get on the payroll because of their loyalty to institutions. Look, at the end of the day, if anyone serious about transforming our society gets into the office of the presidency,
that person will definitely go by the biometric system. Because once you start to block the payroll, personnel cost is a recurrent cost.
Mm-hmm.
It is a cost that is so much heavy on the national budget that must be controlled. Donor partners will tell you every day in their meetings that if you want to succeed, you have to control your human capital costs. Minimize in this for efficiency, for productivity. A smaller group can be better managed and can do a bigger job than a crowded group of people somewhere with no specifics, no direction, no coordination.
Well,
no
in fact,
expertise.
some of our intelligence filtering out of the system is that when you enter governmental structure these days, people are watching Nigerian movie, people are playing cards, people are doing things that they would otherwise do at recreational activities, not the work of government. So that in itself breeds inefficiency and lack of productivity. But then one of the things I want to bring is that you transitioned later on from the Civil Service Agency and you went to LIPA, Liberian Institute of Public Administration. Tell us a little bit. What is the role of that arm of government? That is it's a vital arm of the government. Correct.
Correct. Basically, this was an arm of the government.
Is it autonomous? Is it autonomous?
No, it is not. It is
Okay.
not an autonomous agency. But what we tried to do as part of our reform initiative, once we got into the public space, which led us, that was the vision that we sold to the panelists during the interview, that given our background as head of the Civil Service Reform Directorate, we thought we were comfortable enough and we had the capability and the expertise to transform that institution since it was believed to be in a decadent form. Decadent in terms of retired, it's moribund, nobody cares, it's old, and all the people who are working there, they're old fashioned. Only old people go over there. The workforce is about 20, 25 people. So nobody saw the relevance. But that was a key government agency that once the opportunity came and the job was advertised by the government, I took advantage of it. I thought that was a perfect opportunity for me to flex my expertise and to show that, public policy is not just translated theoretically into services by just writing and writing and writing. You can act public service. You can act theory. That is by operationalizing the very theory that you write every day. So my thinking was, I'm going over there with a mindset to move things, to change things around, to make it happen. If it is moribund, I will resurrect it, I will rekindle the image, I will give it the relevance that it so much deserves within the public institutions of Liberia. So I got there. There was the size of the employee or the total strength of the workforce of around 30, 35. And I mean, we're in a rental property. The structure of the building itself was dilapidated. The institution didn't have transportation to move our workers from one point to the other. There was a little bit of a neglect on the institution in general. So the budget of the institution was somewhere around 550,000 to 600,000. That was the budget of the institution with about 35 staff on board. The institution had 3 deputies. For a small institution, 3 deputies and then 1 director. There were 4 appointed officials with green letters from the office of the president. So in my thinking, I felt that the institution first needed to be reformed to meet the contemporary nature of other institutions that are serving their country in the same position, with the same mandate and same functions. Because LIPA was established for capacity building purposes within the civil service and the public service of Nigeria, I felt that the relevance of that institution will only be felt if its mandate is reviewed and refocused, re-engineered to adapt to the contemporary approaches that will be adapted by the current government. So I took it as a dear responsibility to my heart. And I hate to explain the story, but the stories are there. Today, there are pictures of a $4.5 million complex that people talk about. Well, thanks be to God and to may the soul of Professor Harold Noah rest in peace. He thought about purchasing the land. He had a dream. I felt like I needed to fulfill that dream. Today, LIPA has a capacity building complex that can be compared to many African capacity building institutions. And my dream was to establish it as an administrative staff college or a civil service staff college within the Republic of Nigeria. That was my dream. And that was what I had on my shoulder. That was what I wanted to do. And I hope that my successors will look in that direction, because there are too many opportunities, to the point where, because of the way I elevated the image and the conversation surrounding LIPA, I got elected to the presidency of the West African Management Development Institute.
What is
Many
that?
professors.
What is that?
It's called WANDIVI. It's the West African Management Development Institute.
What does that? What does it do?
All of the West African capacity building institutions have a common network.
Okay.
Where they compare their curriculum, the exchange curriculum, the exchange professors and trainers, the exchange resources depending on what one institution has as a niche, and the other institution will require to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So we interacted at different levels, and I can say for a fact that Liberia was fully represented at many
levels,
conferences and fora.
Mm-hmm.
So, Colonel Gray, you are quite correct. My move to LIPA was a show of my expertise. I know there are other negatives that people have. I'm open to criticism. I like for people to tell me the wrong way. One friend was joking me. He said, I don't know whether he meant what he said. He said, everybody that O'Brien employed, all the professionals that came, they were all Ghanaians and Nigerians. But those guys never had credentials. None of them had credentials. And they worked at LIPA for all those years that he said. He did criticize one Muniki. So, you know what I said to the gentleman? I will name a few friends, and maybe this is a joke, or you have a particular bias, but I will name a few professional Liberians who served there, and you ask them whether in the midst of them there were any Ghanaian or Nigerian without credential that I employed. And at least 10 persons. They are right over in Monrovia. Some of them are Civicians, some of them are Liberty Party, Partisan, Unity Party, Partisan, they are all there. I hate to expose my friends who haven't given me the permission to call their names, but I was constrained to tell this brother, you know some of these guys, you were in high school with them, ask them if during my tenure as Director General there was one Ghanaian or Nigerian that was employed. So he didn't come back. He fell short of the conversation. He could not defend the argument that he made. And these are things that we all accept. Another gentleman who had been my classmate told a joke. He said, "My man, you O'Brien, you be talking every day. You old government official, you only one store. You need on list for steady." I said, "Well, you know what? If you knew the processes surrounding audits, auditor, auditee, and all the processes surrounding it, you wouldn't argue. The one thing that I know, our law requires that when someone is accused, that accused must be heard, and it must be done through due process,
right,
and the person must have full representation under the law.
yeah,
It is within our constitution.
right.
So then the other guy said, "But the guy ran away." Of course, you are my friend, and you know my domestic situation here.
Yeah.
With my wife.
Yeah.
You know. But again, I now have an obligation to explain to everybody what it is. I'm an intelligent and professional person. I play beyond that local kind of game. I don't buy into that. But again, thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about LIPA.
Yeah, we have about 14 more minutes of our time. I promised earlier in the session that this was going to be an hour-long conversation, and you know, LIPA in itself, one would say, these are some of the agencies that are redundant. Matter of fact, some of them, like the Ministry of Information, they should not be in existence because individually, line ministries can undertake their own training and so on and so forth. And even we're a country of 42,000 square miles, maybe down to 39,000 or so, but we do have other counties that one would say we need to begin to decentralize some of these functionaries. So you talk about 35 plus staff that you met there. I would want to assume that a government agency of that stature should have well over 4,000-5,000 people because we're looking at nationwide. Now, what would you say to those who say this line of government agency is not relevant? We don't need it.
Well, if anyone said that to me, I would tell them to reflect on what it means for you as an educated man to have a father who parented you over the years and worked in government, didn't know how to write his name, but had the opportunity to go for training to better himself, to put food on the table for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't have to think about this. These are not people that went to formal schools. Some of them became mechanic out of practice.
Mm-hmm. Apprenticeship system.
Apprenticeship, they learn on the job.
Mm-hmm.
But they needed some basic understanding of the environment. Say, for example, safety rules.
Right.
What kind of goggles to wear, when and where to turn when you are driving a truck. Those kinds of basic things they need. And those are the very things that the countries that are neighboring us are doing for their civil service, for which their productivity is on the rise. And therefore, we were under obligation to make sure that civil servant needed to come to civil service. I mean, to get recruited and then sent to LIPA for training. And the training meant a lot. A little over time, the institution that was graduating 6-7 person started to graduate maybe 150 to 200 in every cycle. By the time we hit the second year, our graduation rate rose from 150 to 350. So we exceeded the 110 mark in terms of percentage because of the quality of people that we have, the quality of our courses, the practicality, the honesty and sincerity that we took there, the commitment and transparency that we established. I can tell you, I don't know if any boss will be proud of his or her deputies like the way I am. I have one of the best teams. One of them today is serving in this country as vice provost. To tell you the truth, these were people who took the job seriously because every day I make sure I met with my team. I call it the morning warm up. And I will tell my deputy for administration, I need a briefing on what went on yesterday. I will talk to my deputy for training. Let's get brief on what is going on in the training department. I walked around and went to classes and never ever engaged with the people unless it was either orientation or graduation. Now guess what? I knew almost everything that was happening on a daily basis because I had briefing with my deputies every day, research and consultancy. I had meeting with them. Every morning we have meeting, we have briefing session. As head of the institution, I needed to know, and believe me, Edmund, if you have ever had this opportunity, working with those three that I have, they didn't give me permission to call them, so I won't. Oh, they were among the best. They were among the best. And that's why Lipa shine, because they respected me as their boss, they took instructions, they brought in great ideas. We all argue on the table, we agree, we disagree, and we put the right card on the table, and I told them, let's do it. Let's get it done.
You know, Mr. Newman, one thing people would say is that, look, for me, my service to country was mostly in the military. You know that.
Yeah.
And in the military, it's a culture to go for training at least every 90 days because they consider you rusty. We were training. I mean, in service was a daily lifestyle. And to some extent here in this country, in service is a practical part of any public functionary. But I would say some of this training in Liberia under Lipa is a one in a lifetime thing. Once they came in, they got trained today, that's it. They're not training anymore for the next 20 years. I could have that bias.
That was not the case. Yeah, you are biased because witnesses out there will tell you we set our courses in a graduated form.
Right.
So you have to finish the introductory course in order for you to move to the next level. And every time they came for the first 1 month, they got impressed. They got more than motivated and went back to their ministries and agency and told their HR and their bosses, I got to go back to Lipa.
Yeah, I got a problem with that. I got a problem with that because some of these are mandatory. They don't even have to go back and lobby. This should be a consistent thing where they have to meet that as a requirement for keeping their jobs. Now, what if they went back to convince the agency said no, you're not going to go back for a second or third time, and that's the end of it, correct?
That was one thing that Dr. Sawyer, my good friend Josh Korensaya and myself fought for. What we wanted to do was to make sure that people went through the in-service training as a means of evaluation for the next stages or the movement on the job. Because within the civil service, we have stages, there are steps, and there are movements within the civil service. You can be a secretary, you can be secretary 1, secretary 2, secretary 3. Before you move upwards to the next stage, you must have completed these certificates, which is a practice elsewhere within the civil service or public service of governments. So that was the thinking that we have. We tried, but we didn't reach to the end. But most ministers were motivated by our engagement. And so they kept sending our people, once they completed the first certificate, they would send them back to second phase, to third phase, to fourth phase. And so we have first, second, third, and fourth phases in almost all of the courses. And when they left LIPA, some of whom were opportune to go on the graduate program that we were facilitating at GIMPA, the results showed.
What is GIMPA?
It showed. GIMPA is the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration.
Okay, got you.
And we have Liberia Institute. Now, that was what they did, and that was the model that I particularly saw as a model that we could adopt as a country.
Well, Mr. Nima, if we're trying to be self-sufficient as a nation, I want to believe that GIMPA is an advanced level from what we obtained at LIPA. Why GIMPA? Why not create an advanced level at your department as opposed to flying overseas where you have to pay for expenditure like housing and transportation allowance, stipend per diem, and all of that stuff. It costs you more than if you create your own model back home that would be considered advanced as opposed to going overseas.
You're quite correct, but here is the thing. The program that our civil servant that benefited from the public sector, the Masters of Public Sector Management a program that they benefited from came out of the many crises that were taking place on the West African continent. And so the African Development Bank, the World Bank, and many other institutions got together and said, look, after these wars, we will need bureaucrats to man these government institutions within this country that are in conflict zones within the West African region. And so they developed a capacity building package where Liberians, Ghanaians, Sierra Leoneans, Nigerians, Gambians were opportune within the civil service to go to Ghana as the host country to train. And why did they select Ghana? Because Ghana had a public service institute that was providing graduate degrees for public servants. And so Ghana had evolved, it had elevated its programs to the point where it started offering master's degree and bachelor's degree and master's degree. So the program that you saw many of our Liberians going to was as a result of that support from the West African region through our international partners.
Well, I mean,
so we could have.
It sounds like
done it, but
go ahead.
I just wanted to make one clarity. We could have done it, but here is why. The act creating LIPA does not give us the degree granting opportunity because you have the universities. It will have been, a usurpation of function or a replication and all of that. Okay. And so, but LIPA is set to train civil servant. But this opportunity came, we use it, we set the standards. Once they met the standards, believe me, Edmond, you can be proud of Liberians. The Liberians that went to Ghana and came back home when I was sitting there, they performed very well. I attended almost all of the commencement as special guest of the Ghanaian government. I was even awarded. Now I don't carry that degree with me all of the time. I was awarded an honorary degree, but I don't carry it with me. I'm not too proud of the one that is given to me for nothing. Just because you are head of your institution, they give you one title, then you run all around the place with it. No.
Oh, so you conferred a doctorate degree too?
No, not conferred. Let me not do that.
It was an honor.
But anyway, but that was the case. That was the case, my dear brother. I like to work hard academically.
So now
I like to.
Because we got one at Freeport of Liberia who carries himself as a.
It is what it is, bro. But when you read The American man said, when it rains, it pours.
Mr. Nima, we are actually at the 60-minute tap. I would say it was quite a pleasure. And I wish we could have more of these conversations, but we come from a nation where people love to see fire coming out of your head for them to pay attention to you. What would you say? What would you say after this coronavirus hoopla is long gone? What would be the future of our country going forward? Just in a nutshell. You don't have to. You can take it from anywhere. Anything.
Conrad, it's really a sad thing to watch some of the posting of people behaving the way they're doing right now. I am worried, and when I say worried, I'm deeply worried about the way our Liberians, our citizens, our parents, our sisters, our brothers, our nieces, our nephews are behaving. This is a pandemic. You and I live in the United States of America, like many foreign nationals. And you can imagine what we're going through. A superpower, a very powerful country, is being dragged in the mud, if you like, from this pandemic. You and I have been indoors for the longest.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working from home for the last 3 weeks. And there is something called furlough that will gradually come to me as a result of the current situation, because things seems to be going bad, or perhaps worse. We are told that after it gets bad, then it will get better. But when? So then I imagine if this sophisticated society, with all of the resources, is struggling to battle this pandemic, how much more about our little Liberia? This requires leadership. This requires voluntary engagement. People need to be serious. I listen to my good friend and brother, Masoka Fala. I hear the brother's voice. I can sense the empathy in his voice for what he foresees. There is a danger. Our society might struggle physically before we talk about the economics and all of that. You know what we see here.
Mm-hmm.
You know how our streets are barely driven on right now. Everybody stays home. I hear our people joking about this pandemic. Oh, we went through Ebola. We went through this. This is a virus that is taking a toll on great nations. Please, I know you went through Ebola, but this is not Ebola. This is a new pandemic.
Yeah.
The scientists, biomedical researchers are struggling to find answers to this. People are dying in huge numbers in the United States. How about Italy? How about Spain? China? Then you're talking about little Liberia, and people are playing around. They need to take it serious. Driving people from the market, there's no food, and all of that. People need to get serious. They need to adapt appropriate strategies and remedy to the attending conditions so that people stay home. They're able to eat.
Let's put it into perspective. When you say people, you mean the government? You mean the subjects who are themselves should be the focus of protection? Who are the people?
I will start first from the people. And of course, the president has yet to show to me that he is the leader on these matters. He has yet to show to me. But then we have to take out in a society where, there are many lapses, people have to own up to their responsibility as citizens. You can't die because there is no leadership. When you die, you're not going to come back. Right? The leader is going to be there. If, God forbid, nothing happens, he's going to be around. And those who are running the government may be around while you die. So this is an individual thing first before we move into leadership. A nation like ours should begin to have leadership on these matters. But as it is, I don't see it, so I will point to the citizens. They have to take this matter in their hand. Prevention.
One of the Mr. Ivan Toba was supposed to be on here tonight, but maybe I couldn't hear him. He sent me something that we should reschedule because he had other engagements on hand. I respect that, but if he were here tonight, one of his key focus was that government would be saving on key budget line items. For instance, you talk about line item from goods and services. You talk about foreign travel, okay? Means of travel, foreign travel, daily subsistence allowance, foreign travel, incidental allowance, domestic travel, means of travel, domestic daily subsistence allowance. All of this money is being saved right now because remember, government used to travel those huge entourages to go abroad. They're not going anywhere right now. So why not see if you can repatriate that money to stay home citizens? Imagine, even us here in the West, even though government has promised stimulus package, we're still struggling. How much more for a country like Liberia, where people live under $1.25 a day and can barely get it, they don't have any means. You telling them to stay home, it's gonna be hard. Even during curfew, when during our civil crisis, people are still moving under the cover of darkness, risking their life. If they get caught, they will get, subject to all kinds of punitive punishments. Now, nothing like that is in place. So obviously, people are not going to listen. People believe that their livelihood is out there. Now, if you don't meet them halfway, how do you expect them to stay home? So I've said that the money we save from all of this, largest traveling we're doing, instead of putting that in our individual pocket to develop our private properties, let's give it to the people. Let's see if we can make public service, more affordable, or like, for instance, government get revenue from phone service. People are catching out them, but still use their cell phone. All of those kinds of ways of getting money, but it should go back to the people. What would you say about that?
Look, I 100% agree with Alva Topa on this one. As a matter of fact, there can be no government if there are no people.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why government exists is because the people, as the government is established by the people, is for all and by the people. If there are no people, there can be no government. You cannot have a dead country. Who are you going to lead? That is why in instances like this one, also, Ava is quite correct. Recast the budget and reallocate resources for food, generally stimulus purposes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Stimulus purposes. Let the people have food. I see the beauty that they want to establish down waterfront. This is great. How about the timing? Is the timing so well articulated in their minds? Oh, we want to clean the city. So you clean up the city, and then all the people who are supposed to live to have food and that. When you should have adapted approaches that will minimize their going down to the waterfront to sell. You could have adapted a better strategy, and there are many that I can run through my head in terms of public administration that can stop the people from going over there.
But wait a minute. One would say that this government has long since embarked on this policy. They gave warning. They told people. It's just that it was coincidental that the advent of Corona make it seem obvious like they were pushing the people out because of Corona. But people have been warned. People have been served, voucher that hey, we are going to relocate you to a newly built, market amenities. Begin to make plan how to move in. You have this timeline, and people ignore it. Those warnings, and normally people would say it is the reaction that us Liberians are more attentive to. Take for instance, the Solicitor General on my show yesterday, and he said that a group of police officers had gone to institute sort of government policy on a church, and they were locked up. These police officers, beaten near unconsciousness. You understand? But say if one police officer had taken a gun and shot, say, somebody in that church, that's what Liberian people hold on to, not the public policy.
Yeah, but Edmund, here's the point, though. That is why it requires leadership. You know why Donald Trump is being accused in the United States of America? Intelligence revealed to him since December, all the way to January. He downplayed the issue of the coronavirus until the society started feeling the pinch of that leadership deficit. A leader must put individual ahead of institutions in times of crisis.
Right.
You got to put individuals ahead of institutions. You cannot institutionalize everything when there are crises in the country.
Right.
As a leader, you must take initiative. Let them see you to an unexpected area for a critical reason. You have to take a bold step. You have to do small things that will challenge the people rather than just making them feel confident. I can have confidence without any hope. Or I'm confident that the coronavirus will go down. What hope do I have that I'm going to get food to eat?
The same hope
but these are the issues.
The same hope that you have that the corona will go down. The same hope will bring you food.
Thank you. Hope is I must give that confidence.
But God's grace, you get food. It will come and knock you.
You know? And then everybody is acting like they're supposed to commercialize everything. Everything in Liberia now has become politics. When you talk, you become any enemy of the state. You know, and this is a serious matter. And for me, this is a pandemic. If the government is not stepping up to the plate, if the people are not yielding to these advices, the government needs to take appropriate actions. But in the midst of all of the action, the government needs to care for its people. These people need food at home. A hungry man is a crazy man.
Oh,
You got to be honest and sincere about this.
You know, we have 30 seconds to wrap up this thing, and it's all yours. And I want to thank you for showing up. I know time is fast spent. To the point where we've expended an hour 15 minutes. So I'll just give you the next 14 or so minutes to just wrap up.
No, actually, I just want to say thank you for affording me the opportunity to share my little talk on on issues of national concern. Actually, because some of us have served, we have the passion for the society that we come from. When we see things differently, it really doesn't mean that we hate people. It just means that we will be critics because we serve. And we think when we were there, we were criticized for doing the wrong thing, and we took those criticisms for positive
in good faith.
actions.
Yeah.
In good faith. And so we will expect others not to sit there and try to burn people as, oh, he had his waiting for a job, he made this job. I was never born to be Director General. The one thing I was born for is to be a husband. I was born to be a husband and to have a wife and to have a domestic responsibility. So that one I'm sure I was born about. But to be a Director General or to be a minister, or I must be a part of a regime for which people see people as enemy, and your utterances are so damning to the point where they want to label you, they want to make you a criminal, they want to say stuff about you. Look, we will talk the talk. This democracy was fought for by people.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us have relatives under the ground.
Yeah.
My brother was driven to Belayala, was flown to Belayala. Some of his friends are around.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are dead. People who are associated with as junior brother, Di Mamadou Labla, who Gabi Tapia, Wiwi Dala, Tony Richardson. They are normal. They fought for this thing. And so we cannot be here and other things they can subjugate our thinking into their mindset, or because they belong somewhere, we should be there, or because we said before we are wrong for talking today. When you take power and you claim to have something, you must act so that people see that your solutions are in the interest of the people. That is all that we are asking.
Thank you, Mr.
When we talk, we just talk for a better Liberia.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, brother. Thanks for coming on. This should not be your last time, nor not the end of it. We're not too audience driven, but we know that as time goes by, people will get the idea that we need professional platform, not one where people hold invectives, where people describe the underparts of other, Liberian citizens because they differ in policy or the type of churches they attend, or the political parties, or the individual they prefer in government, and so on. Here we just look strictly at the Republic, for which we all fall under one God. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing back from you in the future.
It was a pleasure, Conrad.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful night.
Yes, sir.
And stay safe, though.
I will. I'm home.
Yeah.
All right. And of course, those who join us, I'd like to thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Nima was here with us. Oblion B. Numa, Oblion Numa is the former Director General of LIPA, Liberia Institute of Public Administration, and we spoke from his home in Champlin, Minnesota. Of course, we look forward to having Mr. Ivar Tokwa in the future. And in case you have something burning on your mind and you like to put it on the international wire like ours, social media, just come. I mean, everything does not have to be focused on the regime. It could be your expertise. Come and tell us, and let's have a conversation. We just supervise the conversation in ways that would be professional. Here we don't hold invectives. It's not our style. I think we have much to offer as opposed to hold an invective because people disagree with us or we disagree with other people. You can come on up on the platform, and use any language that you think us will not respond to you. In other words, respective of what is going on, we will not respond to you because ours is a professional platform. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Stay safe.